Let's talk some toys in here.
Hey, what's going on everyone today? It's a man-child. Okay, so today I'm going to do a little something different. I'm going to do my Motu Origins top 10 figures video. I've been asked this quite a few times, in the comments, would I ever do a top 10 video and what's my favorite Motu Origins figures at this point? So pretty much you can see what I have laid out, and yeah, it's kind of hard to pick because I can easily do 20 or 30. For the most part, we're three-quarters of the way through now, I would say, with the Origins line for what figures they brought over from the Vintage line into the Origins, which is awesome. There is a couple missing. I'll give you an example, like Cyclone and Spike Orb I'd like to see come out, because they were two of my favorites as a kid. Hopefully we'll see it. I think Spike Orb was already announced for next year, and they showed, teased them, so that's cool. But aside that, this is my lineup. Now I'm kind of going through a combination of, I want to say, nostalgia growing up, of what I, felt as a kid with the vintage figures, inspired figures, to now again we have an Origins. But at the same time, what the Origins did different with these type of figures, and when I look at my collection, well, my eye seems to catch the most. Now I am excluding figures like He-Man, Skeletor, and Hordak, the leaders, right? I mean, they're just awesome. How can I not? But I'm going to exclude them from my favorites because, of course, He-Man would be one, of Skeletor. Um, but I really like the creature-like characters or the robotic-like characters. I always did as a kid, but that always caught my attention and interest. All the way back from, yeah, child to where I am now. And what I like with these two, and some of these are customized a little bit, like Etsy options, like Webster and stuff. When I bring them in, I'll show you what I'm talking about. But I like that with the Origins. I like that the heads can be removed. There's so much more you can do with them now, but for the most part, these are the ones I picked for a combination nostalgia, looks, what I like, and this is what I'm showing. So let's get into it. So starting number 10, counting down, we have Mantana. Yeah, Mantana, as far as the Origins, a completely all new tooling. It's just amazing how he came out. Four separate legs, which I didn't see that one coming. I'm surprised he wasn't deluxe. Usually bigger characters like that comes in a big deluxe card for more money. Of course, the vintage one had two legs together. We knew they were four legs because of watching the Filmation cartoon, or they were supposed to be. As a kid, it was fun, but no articulation. Now, I wasn't sure how they were going to go about Mantana when I heard rumors he was coming out for the Origins. And I did hear a mix of comments like, it would be cool to see the four legs, which the classics did, or people for the nostalgia just were fine if there were two legs sculpted together, but maybe articulated the knees and the feet. So taking a closer look at Mantana, yeah, it's again, I like the way the legs were done. They're all separate instead of two sculpted together, maybe bended the knees and feet. But of course, with all the Origins or most of them, we can pop them apart at the waist. And what's neat with Mantana too, you can make I want to say almost a 2000X inspired Spider Webster if you have the figure, which I do, and he's part of this review, out of the legs, like in this image. Or you can just take Mantana's upper body and use Webster's lower legs, or whoever's legs you want, and make a whole nother figure out of Mantana. And moving back up to the head, yeah, the head is just awesome the way they did this with all the articulation now. It looks very much like the vintage, but of course a way better redesigned sculpt. And what's awesome with the newer Origins Mantana is he carries over the action features, or the bug eye popping effect like this with the switch in the back. So that's cool he did that. It's neat that the head can pop off. He could change other heads out on Mantana or put Mantana's head on another body. I did that in my Mantana review, I remember. I always like this armor too, and it's awesome how the Origins redesigned it, but with the bat, just the colors, whole different aesthetic. It's just, yeah, he looks like not only a big bug or some type of creature, but fully armored, which is neat. But I really like the way he came out. It's just the colors, the articulation of the legs. I couldn't be happier with this Mantana in the Origins line. Now, going into some of my childhood memories, the only really memories I can remember with Mantana is I think he was the first Horde figure I ever got. I remember going to Child's World and seeing the Horde faction for the first time. It was just so exciting, but my mom said you can get one, and I wound up getting another figure. It wasn't the Horde. I don't remember who it was. I wound up getting Mantana for like Christmas, because Christmas was close, and I didn't get any other Horde guys because they were all sold out. They were selling like hotcakes. Everybody wanted them. So I get this Mantana, and I was super excited. The vintage one, even with the weird legs at the time, was just unique. But, of course, I had some friends in the neighborhood that, a couple of them had everything. And they didn't have any of the Evil Horde. They knew they were coming out and didn't have any. So I get them in 10, they're all jealous and stuff. And yeah, they wanted to trade figures with me and buy them, buy it off me and whatnot. But yeah, their mom took them a couple days later, and they got all Evil Horde instead of just Mantena. They were like spoiled like that. I wound up getting the rest of the Horde later on as I came like Hordak and Leech. But that was as far as Mantena, that was the only memory I really have with them, was being the first one to get him at Christmas, and how cool that Horde faction was. Overall, I couldn't be happier the way Origins remastered this figure, and he's number 10 on my list. So up next at number 9 is Mackinac. Finally, we have Mackinac in New Origins line. I couldn't be happier for that. Another favorite as a kid, and now again in New Origins, just looking at him like, wow. Now, of course, he comes in a Mackinac Ground Ripper 2-pack, instead of a single card release, which hopefully it'll come out one or variant at least. But that's how they're putting him out at this time. Yeah, again, silver boots, which is cool now. We can change out the boots with brown He-Man boots or creature feet or whatever. Like we could do it a lot of parts with the Origins, which we couldn't do in the vintage. The blue muscle skin suit, as I used to call it as a kid. Their armor was really unique at the time, and of course he shared it later on with Stinkor. That yellow club used to catch my eye, and I think that club was technically a periscope. I never understood why it had a big hole in it, like it was hollowed out. I used to pretend it was a laser blaster would come out of it when you'd hold it forward, or it was just a club, but I think it's a club slash telescope to help his enhanced vision up in that visor piece. And of course, a telescopic or periscope neck was always fun. Now, like all the Origins, they took away the action feature, if you want to call it that, and just gave us a simple snap-on ball peg setup, which is cool because now you can put different heads on, it still articulates, but yeah, I think we missed that. A lot of people in the comments don't miss that nostalgia with this new Mackinac if you have it in hand already, and we loved those action features as a kid. I'm bringing in Mackinac for a closer look. Now I already reviewed them, but like I said, we know where all the articulation points is. And I'm not going to change heads and stuff and do all that customization in this video. I already did it in my other videos. Just my top 10 Origins Moto figures. You can see I got, if you ever notice, a Mortal Kombat or Spawn stands on the bottom of the feet. I use these for my McFarlane Spawn figures, obviously, and they help hold the Origins up well because it fits the same little bolt, this little peg, and fits in the bottom of the feet, the holes. With the neck, if you're not familiar, so now, like I said, it doesn't have the waist. The old one, you would twist the waist and the neck would go up and down. But now it just articulates, spins all around. And that's how it looks like when it comes off. And the head moves on top of that too, and you can put different heads on. I don't mind that. What would have been cool, I guess my only gripe too with this now, not only did we lose the action feature, is that you have this blue collar piece, so if you got two Mechanics or Ground Ripper 2-packs, and you wanted to, say, keep one Mechanic and just keep the head short or put a different character's head, like He-Man on or something, and you wanted to build these mechanical neck pieces up, you really couldn't do that. It will look goofy. I mean, you can, but because you got this blue piece, you could probably paint the silver, cut this. You can do anything you know how to modify. But aside that, it is a really cool design. Looks very much like the vintage. I love that visor, how shiny it is. Now, mine has some QC chipping issues. I don't know really how to fix that. Maybe a chrome type paint, it looks like. I don't know. But it is, I love the way it came out. And we already talked about the club and stuff like that. So I don't mind that they don't have the action feature. It's just cool to have Mackinac. And I guess a memory from a kid, if I have any. I remember getting them brand new for Christmas. And I had that, if anybody was familiar, it was this carry case that held all your Motu figures. And I remember getting so excited and putting all these figures in it and showing. My mom just got them for me. My father didn't. I showed my father, like, whether he was interested or not. But I remember running over to him, saying, check, my guy's out. And I got this new guy, Mackinac, and I tripped. And the case went flying out of my hand, smashed on the floor, and we had stairs. And of all the figures that flew out all over the place, I think I had, like, Buzz Off and Fisto. Some guys came out. I remember Mackinac coming out and going down the stairs. My brand new Mackinac flying down, hitting the wall, crashing. You think a figure like that would have broke. Well, good old Motu figures. No, he was, good as new. I brought him up, showed my dad. I was popping the neck back and forth. Just like, oh, yeah, that's cool. Well, it's funny how excited you were as a kid, and I still am as an adult. So that's number 9, Mackinac for me. So up next to number 8 for me is Roboto. Roboto is just another unique figure going back to the vintage days. I remember seeing him for the first time in Child's World hanging on a pegs. I just came in to do the toy, well, we call them toy hunts now. At the time, it was just your mom would take you once or twice a month, and there he was. I remember seeing him in car with the wacky colors, muscles, but with some circuitry on now. Could hold weapons on that hand, similar to Trapjaw. And just that clear chest with the gears and the headpiece. It was like, wow, look at this cybernetic robot guy with, you could see his insides, you know, it was just so cool for the day. So we'll bring him in real quick. Now, Roboto, too, like I said, it was something with that C2 chest with his insides, but he really didn't have insides. Of course, he had gears. And this Roboto did maintain his action feature somewhat, right? So you twist it, the gears would spin, and then the little mouth would open. You'd see the inside of his, I guess that eyepiece. I guess the visor was technically his camera eyepiece, and he has little mechanical mouth flap. My disappointment with the Origins one, though, is just look, there's nothing in the back. Where the vintage one not only had it had the gears in front, but it had some extra ones, like I think a yellow and a green, and it had a mechanical heart, which he's missing of all parts. Because I think Man at Arms created Roboto, and he gave him this mechanical heart, from what I remember, and that was pretty important in the story. And at the Origins didn't carry it over, and you just got this big hollow space, and it's like, okay, you know, it's gonna overlook it, but a little disappointing when you seen it. My friend has a vintage one, I don't, but I remember just looking at it some months back over his house, and I'm going, yeah, he's missing this and that, and the other thing, the heart, but still cool to have Roboto. Plus, you can change out the weapons on the hands, blaster, you know, the weapons he comes with. Right now, I have the dual blaster, obviously, and you can change out weapons with Trapjaw. They somewhat work. So we're bringing in Trapjaw for a minute now. Yeah, Trapjaw was obviously one of my favorites as a kid. Well, Roboto just to me took it to another level. I don't know why. I guess just something with this clear chest and gears did it for me. And he already had the weapon switching feature, as I said, but Trapjaw with the Origins now, you could pop this off, and it sort of works. Not exactly. See, it does. There is a space, but you still can get it to work. So I don't know if anybody's tried this. You're curious. And then Trapjaw, you can use Roboto's weapons, and that works perfect. It's just a larger space, even though it's a different color. You can get a spare one painted, but I thought that was pretty cool. You can do that with these two. All right, so putting the weapon back on hand in Roboto. What was also cool with this Roboto too is both hand arms do pop out of the sockets. The waist, because it's all part of the action feature, does not come apart, so you can't really customize that. I know of. I don't never noticed. I don't think it comes apart, and the head doesn't either. It's all part. It does turn, but you can't really pop it off like a ball peg system, like some of the other Origins for customization. Aside that, though, it's like I said, one of my favorites. A little disappointed with the parts missing the back. I always wanted to open them up. I don't know. I might do that one day. Get another one. Maybe get a vintage and open this up and maybe switch some parts around or something, or even just glue them in there somehow. I don't know. Just for effect, but something on the list. Aside that, always a cool character. I'm really happy you have a Roboto in the Origins, and he's one of my favorites at number 8. Okay, next up at number 7, we have Webster. Another favorite as a kid, and even now in the Origins, I have him hanging from my Snake Mountain, Super 7 Snake Mountain in the background. Another character, when I look at my collection, just catches my eye. It was the collar, the armor, the backpack, that grapple hook that he's hanging from, of course, and it's a working grapple hook, so he has the action feature. The head sculpt, those big, red bug eyes, fangs, and an extra little pair of eyes up top. I always loved this character as a kid and still do to this day. And bringing my Origins Webster in for a closer look. So as all the Origins, I love the new articulation, just everything from the elbows, arms, head, legs, that we can straighten the legs out now and make the figure even taller and look better. Or still keep that nostalgic squat pose if you wanted to. I never, it's fun for a kid, but now I look at it as an adult for them vintage guys. I don't know, it just don't look right to me. But twist in a waist. Now you can see with mine. So this is it has the insect kind of a creature legs there on this particular web store, and this came from Etsy. It actually snaps around the backpack. I did do some shading on mine to try to match the backpack. I got to do a little better job, and the claws don't come like that. It's all one color. You can see it's 3D printed, but that's really cool, and it's designed specifically for the Origins, I believe. And I don't know if it works for the vintage. The seller on Etsy had it marketed for the Origins, but it's cool because it reminds me of the 2000X style web store that had those long legs coming out, and the classics sort of had something like that too. But that's a neat option to really just, bring this Webster to another level. Now, of course, he did come with this orange laser pistol rifle, plasma pistol rifle, call it. That's cool. And of course, you can use it for any figure. Now, mine keeps falling out of his hand. My Webster has really, where the newer Motu Origins have soft hands. His is you can barely move it. I'm about to heat that up. I put some tape on it to hold it, but it was cool you got that. And of course, with this Webster, you had the work and action feature, or the grapple hook, which is neat. Now, some of the cons I want to say, or problem with the Origins, I don't know so much of the vintage, but the string would fall out of this. And that's not a big deal on the end of the hook, but especially this little piece here, the pull cord. And when the string lets go, it falls through the backpack, and you can't really repair it without trying to snap this backpack apart. The other disadvantage too with these claws is now you can't. Well, I guess you sort of can. You used to be able to wrap the rope around. Okay, you still can, I guess. I don't do that, but on these little clips. And as I said, it's the working action feature. It works okay with this character. I remember reviewing him a long time ago. My solution though with these knots, I put a little crazy glue on the hook end and a little crazy glue on this tab end, and it'll never come apart, fall off, and go through the backpack. And that's saying the string can't snap somewhere else. I don't see why it would, or how much pressure you're putting on it. But beside that, just an awesome figure and character. As far as my memories as a kid, now I played with a little bit with the grapple hook effect, I remember, but I remember going to Child's World, right back to that place, because that's what we had. Right? We didn't have Toys R Us then, we had Child's World. Go home with my mom, looking for our new, the toy hunt, right? And they had Cobra Khan and they had Webster out. I remember Cobra Khan was at the lower left-hand section of the pegs, and they might have had maybe one or just two of him. Grab one. I was so excited to see them because these guys too. I remember looking at the back of a previous card art a month or two beforehand from whatever figure it was on, and they had one Webster way up top. Now I was about 9 then. I was too short. I couldn't reach him. And this woman comes around, and I'm by myself, and I'm trying to figure out every way to go up and get this Webster. I could not reach him, and I'm trying to stand on a little lower shelf and whatnot. And I said, "Excuse me, ma'am, can you get that blue guy Webster for me?" And she goes up, she picks it off the thing, looks at it, goes, "Sorry, that's for my son." And she walks away. And that was it. I didn't get a Webster till about, I think the next month later we went back, and they had more, But yeah, that was my memory at Webster. So, aside that, awesome figure. Yeah, it's cool that the Origins maintains the action feature, which works okay. And that's number 7 for me. So next up at number 6, we have the Master Universe Origins Leech, part of the Evil Horde faction. Yeah, I mean, the Evil Horde were one of the coolest factions to come out at the time when I was a kid. Never mind the classics, and now we have them in the Origins for the most part. We have the main villains now, like Montana, Horde Act, the Horde Troopers, Grizzlord, now Leech. I'd love to see a Modulok. That would be cool. Hopefully we'll get one. But I remember getting Leech as a kid too, and just suction cup effect, whole different aesthetics. Just this big green, armored all over, Horde symbol, that weird looking face. Now I like what the Origins did, of course, is add some new hands and the bigger mouth. That's the head I usually keep on, which that kind of goes back to the classics, or sometimes what you see in comic books, instead of this retro play feature, and that's going back to that the suction effect or nostalgia. But it's pretty neat they gave you that, and he also was a deluxe figure. And bringing in our Origins Leech, yeah, I couldn't believe that Mattel put out a Leech this early in the Origins or last year, because they just put out the Montana and some other figures that required newer tooling. I didn't expect them that soon. Now they did. I guess my gripes would be is that they're sharing the same arms and legs, at least the upper parts, with most of the other figures, where the vintage Leech had just this massive, its own sculpt or tooling in the arms and legs. It just made him really stand out. Yeah, I think the box about the same size. It is done well, okay, and it's the Horde symbol. I love the paint. Of course, we have the articulation. Now, as being a deluxe, we do get the crossbow, which all the Horde come with anyway, but it allows us for this other head that we'll get to in a second, and the extra hands. The head, and what's neat with this Leech too is the suction cups work really well. Where I think the vintage, it had a button in the back, right? You push it in, let it out, and it would suck air in with a little orifice or hole in this first headpiece that allowed him to stick. And I have a story with that button and that old Leech in a little bit, but now everything it's just kind of push on effects, and it works pretty well. I remember reviewing him. You could hang him upside down from the feet, and the sort of feet, the hands, and all that the head will hold. So it is different than the vintage Leech. So moving back onto the head now, this new head has full articulation, which is really cool, like all the Origins. And I don't usually use this one. I pop it off. I like this one better. All right, this one I keep on. And yeah, being the deluxe card figure, you get this second head. This one's really cool. I love the sculpting in it. Just the open mouth. It is soft, so you can kind of close if you want to. The way the teeth was done. The eyes, and again, of course, it's fully articulated, so it's neat. And all your add articulations figures, I already mentioned. In the arms, you can move all around. You can spin these suction cups. And it was neat they gave you 2 other hands, too, now, to plug in the event. Like, if you always wonder, I always wondered as a kid, what happens when the suction cups are closed? It'd be cool if you had hands or fingers. And yeah, there they go. So as far as any childhood memories with Leech, so I get him for the first time. It's just so cool, unique looking, really bulky, and it was just so exciting to have the newer Horde faction or figures. I'm about 12 now. And we wound up moving across town. Most of my He-Man and Master Universe were up on tables, more or less collect them. I didn't really play with them at that point. And the line was winding down, if not pretty much finished up. Where I lived, so there was a house across the street, and I want to say his family in it. The kids that I would play with, I was friends with them all. They're really nice, but the family was poor. They were on like assistant living, that kind of thing. And they would have other family members come in and out because they were, not well to do either. I had this one kid come in. His name was Robert. He's about a year or two younger than me, from what I remember. And, got to meet him. Nice kid. And we were talking about toy collecting, and somehow Masters Universe come up. I told him that I don't play with him anymore, but I have him up on a table. I just collect him. He sit up there. And he goes, yeah, I love Master Universe. And he had some. So he wound up going in the house, bringing out this Castle Grayskull folded up, which was pretty cool. It was exciting seeing that. Somebody else have it. And I was like, oh, cool. We brought it outside across the street. He had a few figures like Evil Lynn, I remember, and a Scareglow with no cape. And he had a Leech. So I remember getting Leech of all figures because he was one of the most impressed. I'm like, oh yeah, Leech, yeah, I got him, and now I'm playing with his Leech instead of playing with mine. And had the suction cups, the face thing, and that one had the button in the back, the action feature. I remember pushing it in. It felt really hard, and at the same time, the figure like rattling inside. Felt like I had weight to it. And I don't know if they had broken parts or something. I'm just like, what's wrong with your Leech? Because I don't know. I guess it was just it felt different. I haven't held mine in a while, but it wasn't right. So I'm pushing on a button. I'm looking at the sunlight, and as I'm pushing in, because it was pretty big, I remember, it had a big gap in it. I see these little antennas come out. I'm like, whoa! Make a long story short, had roaches in it or bugs of some sort. I'm like, oh my god. So what do we wind up doing? We go to my house, fill up the sink with hot water, and we throw this Leech in. And now my father wasn't home at the time. My father didn't want those kids or anybody across the street in our house. He liked them. He liked everybody. He was a nice, great guy to people, but he knew they had roaches. This isn't the first encounter with stuff we just seen or heard from what they said, how loaded the house was with roaches. And yeah, here we bring this toy to my house with roaches. So he's not home. Throw it in the sink, boil hot water. You had to see these roaches try to come out of this thing. They were trying to come out of the holes. Big ones, little ones. It was disgusting. There's just a nest inside them. It didn't stop. After about 20, these things come out. It was waterlogged. They were just still trying to escape. Wind up taking a toy outside, doing this, trying to get the rest of them out. I was like, you know what? I just threw it on the ground. I'm like, you know what? I don't want to play He-Man anymore. It's just disgusting. I did take Robert up, see my He-Man collection after that. And he was really impressed. He couldn't believe what I had. And yeah, that was the end of that. But that was my memories of Leech as a kid or teenager. Side that, yeah, I'm kind of glad I didn't have the button because it kind of creeped me out. I remember seeing that when the Origins come around. I was like, oh, I was disappointed because of the lack of the action feature. But they did give us the heads or, new articulation that. And I'm like, yeah, because it brings back bad memories. So I like the way he come out. Super excited to have him in the Origins line. And he's number 6 on my list. So next up at number 5, Clawful. Yeah, Clawful was another one of those crazy looking Motu figures as a kid. I remember seeing in Toys R Us and package for the first time. Got Muscle Man aesthetics with a tan on both arms and in the legs, but then you got these crazy creature feet, not to mention the crab or lobster claws and the gigantic claw there. I mean, that just first thing caught my eye. Awesome looking head sculpt for the time, with the big eyes. And of course, I like the way the Origins redesigned him with the open mouth and teeth. That's unique, where the Vintage was closed. And his crazy eyebrows, where some people are mixed on him, going back to that nostalgia, and other people don't like him, especially when the classics came around. They kind of did the same thing going back to the vintage, but they weren't actually eyebrows. They were supposed to be like whiskers, like if you ever see a sea creature or sea urchin or something like that. They're black, and they got all these little tentacles and stuff like that, and spines, kind of what they were. From what I read, that was the idea of them. They're not eyebrows. Anyway, but who cares? It's Moto. Anything goes. Now, my dad was a commercial fisherman and lobsterman. I used to scuba dive in the day, fishing. I grew up in the water. Loved sea creatures and lobsters and crabs. I was just so fascinated by that stuff. So, of course, it would be a favorite of mine as a kid. So, taking a closer look at Clawful, yeah, again, I love that redesign the head, or at least just the open mouth part with the teeth. It works really well for him, and all the sculpting on here, just, yeah, really cool. Always love this chest armor. Just works well for Clawful. It's like, yeah, a big crab or a carapace that you would see on the top of a crab. The design in here and even the fins on the back. We got the action feature with the claw. It works awesome with the Origins. Snaps good. You can hold your figures up. Like it locks well on like their head or something. Remember doing that in my review. That's cool. Now it can not only can it snap, but it can also spin. I don't remember if the Vintage did that. And it also helps with the articulation at the elbow and the arms, all the things you can do with it now. Also, the smaller claw too. I like the redesign, which they use for buzz off, where not only can it spin, but it can also, it's on a hinge joint, go up and down. So with this mace weapon, which is also redesigned, I like that a little better. And you can also staff some other weapons in that claw, but you can, put it in different positions to where I think the Vintage can only go like that. It looks silly. It didn't look right. Now we can do all kinds of stuff with the claw because of the new articulation. Yeah, twist at the waist and the cool boots, like these creatures' feet, which when these come out, it was also used on Whiplash later on, which we got. As far as childhood memories, just being excited to get in a clawful because I have my interest in the ocean, lobsters and crabs and stuff, and the Motu line. I think it was one of the first figures I put under the vintage slime pit, and I didn't like it, because I was so meticulous with my figures, and I remember how hard it was to clean a slime up, especially if you got dirt on it, or I don't remember what it was, but I remember not being happy with that. And I'd take the armor off, and it was under the neck, and yeah, and the shoulders, and the Vintage didn't have the articulation, obviously, that the Origins did with hinge joints and stuff, but that was my worst memory. I didn't like that. But aside that, always a favorite of mine for the reasons I, mentioned, and he's really high on my list. So Clawful's number 5 on my character list. So up next, number 4 on my list is Cobra Khan. I'm so excited to have a Cobra Khan finally in the Origins line. Never mind the other Snake Man that came out in Wave 11, like the Rattler, and we have a Snake Armored He-Man. King Hiss is supposed to arrive the end of this month into December, January, depending on which website you look at it for pre-order. Tongue Lasher is going to come in Wave 12. He was announced for. Obviously, this was part of Wave 11. But Cobra Khan was just that unique, Motu figure in the day when I was a kid, going back to Child's World. I remember seeing him. I was so excited to grab him off the pegs. Of course, I wanted Webster too, and that lady took him from me. I did get one a month or two later, but it was just great seeing something. It was just different, I mean, okay, your typical green colors, but now he had scales. He had a head that was, snake, a reptile-like creature. And what was really, I mean, the most fun of anything was the play action feature or the squirt mechanism in the head. Now, unfortunately, with the Origins, they eliminated that with Cobra Khan. A lot of people were disappointed when I reviewed this figure. So, yeah, a little disappointing, but we did get an acid plug in effect, which is cool. And if anything, he's reminiscent in my head to Reptile in Mortal Kombat series, which was a big part of my teenage life growing up. And taking a little closer look at Cobra Khan, yeah, very reminiscent what a vintage figure reminded me of or looked like, but of course with modernized sculpt and paint and the articulation. We do get the acid spit effect, which of course unplugs. It's a neat feature. I guess somewhat in place of losing the spray mechanism action feature in his typical blaster pistol. If you weren't familiar with the vintage Cobra Khan, so the head would pop off. It had a squirt mechanism. You fill a body with water, put it back on. You would snap it back in place and push the head up and down, and it would mind spray to mist. That was really cool for the day. Now this just has a ball peg system with, articulation to head and neck, which is cool because I like being able to move the head all around different, looking up, down, side to side. Yeah, the eyes are pretty neat on Cobra Khan, very snake-like, and with the paint on with the Origins, and they painted, I guess, supposed to be his teeth or fangs. Would have been cool if they did some more highlights on the upper, the fangs up top and bottom, but they didn't. I can always do that later on. It's awesome with the improved articulation with Cobra Khan now, with the Vintage didn't have, or the Vintage only had 5 points, where this figure, everything we know with the Origins as far as articulation, waist, legs, boots, the whole deal. What was cool with Cobra Khan, too, he's pretty much like our first, I want to say the early introduction to the Snake Men faction. Well, when we got him as a kid, he was really technically part of Skeletor's minions at the time, or henchmen. And the Snake Men figures came out later when, King Hiss came out, Rattler, all them guys. And maybe somewhere in that story, finally introduced Cobra Khan. But even in the Filmation cartoon, the Snake Man wasn't a thing. So Cobra Khan would come in and out, and again, he was part of Skeletor's crew. And then when the 2000X cartoon came out, or the Mike Young production, that really put a whole spin on Cobra Khan with Skeletor going back and forth when the Snake Men come in, and he was like, kind of Two-Faced in that sense, As far as childhood memories, The only thing I can remember, I think Cobra Khan was one of the only figures I brought into school at show and tell. We had it was like fifth grade, I think, and yeah, some people brought some interesting stuff, and here I bring He-Man to Cobra Khan. What was I brought him because I thought it was cool. Not only did I just get him, but it was the spray action feature. So show and tell wasn't just, yeah, bringing in, oh, look, my He-Man figure and twist and that. I mean, some people did that, but everybody was impressed, not only the look of it, or that it had water, a teacher too, and it sprayed water, and that was unique at the time because we all, as kids, like squirt guns and, yeah, hoses and anything to do with water. At least I did. And what was funny too is bringing them in school. A lot of the kids I didn't even know collected He-Man. I mean, and then you start opening that door, and they went home and watched the cartoon, and they had, they collected figures, and I didn't know that. To where I grew up, we all collected it. My side of town, it was a big thing. So that was really interesting, but always a super cool character. I'm just really happy that we have a new Origins. Yes, I missed the spray action feature, but it is what it is. You can always get a vintage one on eBay. To go back to the past if you want, but this acid effect's cool. And it's just fun to finally get the Snake Man in the Origins. So Cobra Khan's number 4 on my list. So counting down my top 10 favorite Origins figures, moving on to number 3, we got Scareglow. I'm just another figure I couldn't believe that Origins put out in the line so early. His sculpt, the paint is just fantastic. But what's really cool with him is this guy can really glow. I mean, look at this image, right? He probably glows even better than the vintage. What's the vintage in a day really had a cool glowing effect. And what I remember too, as a kid, just going, getting him for the first time on the pegs at Child's World, and finally seeing a figure in my favorite toy line, right, Master Universe, at the time, the vintage toy line, that we had a character that looked like a skeleton and glowed in the dark. Now in the 80s too, that was a big thing now coming around as far as we'll call action features was glow in the dark things. I remember having some rubber bugs or monsters that glow in the dark, but I didn't have any action figures. I couldn't believe there was one in the Master Universe line. Now I always thought he was the ghost of Skeletor. Wasn't sure who he was when he came out in the line. So once I got him, he was my Skeletor. He took over my Skeletor position. Even though he sat on a table, he was my new Skeletor. It wasn't until years later when the Classics line come around about, and they had on the back of the card an image here, kind of gives a bio, where his character, whereabouts, who he was. So he's basically his own character. And then when the Revelation cartoon come around, finally we seen him on a big screen for the first time because we never seen him in the animation, filmation, or the 2000X show. So it was finally cool to see one and get one of the Origins, and it's just so cool the way he came out. And taking a closer look at Scareglow, I mean, look at that head. I love the way the Origins, just for as simple as it is, the markings inside the teeth there, the recessed eyes, a little bit of black they put in there, the red highlights for like glowing eyes, the crack in the skull, the articulation, of course, is awesome. As I said, with all the Origins, even all the little paint, and just he has like a gelatinous muscle skeleton glowing scare glow guy. I mean, what more do you want in a figure? Cape is really cool in this. Now I think the vintage one was cloth, I believe, from what I remember. And I know when this one came around, some people were early online in the comments were a little disappointed at that, but I don't mind this. I like it. It works. Comes off easy. It's a cool material, sculpting on it. And it was funny because people I know that had scare glows in the day, as kids, my friends, they're always missing a cape for some reason. Most of them. Yeah, the articulation is always a plus, of course. Had this cool, really bright axe staff kind of thing. This doesn't glow in the dark, and I don't think the vintage one did either. I think it was very similar color. I think it was a darker green, but it's a cool weapon for the time with scare glow. Really neat. Even all the black highlights and stuff. Just I love the way they went about this character. And once again, now he's under some light. Right, let's shut off some lights here and check him out in the dark. Okay, so we got Scareglow set back up on my turntable going round and round, and again, look how bright this figure is. Now all lights are completely off. He's so bright, it's actually casting some light in the wall in the background. It's hard to see in camera. I brought that up because as far as childhood memories with this, or the vintage figure, when I was about the age of 9, we had a power outage, and the Scareglow was up on my, I had a big Motu collection laid out, and he was sitting up there. I'm 9, I love creepy stuff, it's just scary movies, all kinds of stuff, but I was afraid of the dark. So we had a power outage and all lights went off. I remember sitting laying on my bed, and of all things in my room, it was pitch black. Scareglow was glowing. He was like the light to rescue me. I actually remember guiding that light because it was close to the the opening in my door and finding the door, opening it to get to the kitchen, get a flashlight. I was into panic because the light's going out. Well, yeah, he saved my life. It was a childhood memory with Scareglow. Aside that, just an incredible character, and he's just so popular in the Motu universe and franchise, and just super glad we got him. And he's number 3 on my list. So up next and coming in number 2 on my favorite origins list is Mosquito. Yeah, believe it or not, he's a favorite of mine. I always liked him as a kid, wacky looking. I remember going in Child's World as well, seeing him for the first time in the pegs. And what was interesting is that me and my mom were going back and forth in Child's World, and we had a dry spell. There was no new Motu figures at the time. I mean, of course, before internet and all that stuff. I don't even think I even seen him on the back of any card art packaging. But we went in there, and there he was. And I was like, look at this guy, and over the top. So here you got this giant needlehead robotic insectoid humanoid Motu figure. And the coolest part was he had that push button blood sucking action feature, which the Origins brought over. I thought the head was unique for the time, and I like your improved articulation now with it. But I mean, yeah, when you get older too, you look at it, it's kind of silly, doesn't make sense, but it is Motu. Maybe it should have been a little smaller. I like it. You can see now my Mosquito, I customize a little bit. When I bring him in, I'll get into that. Give him more make maybe the NECA 2000X Staction vibe. Something like that I was going for. But I think he's a cool figure, I'm glad to have him in the Origins. And taking a closer look at Mosquito, yeah, again, that head's just wacky over the top. I mean, yeah, big syringe, needle or something like that, sucking blood. Now, what was cool with this deluxe figure is not only did it come in an alternative head, which is pretty much the same thing, it's just different sculpt. I don't use it. I use this, first release head just for the nostalgia. Was this blood second effect that we're all familiar with. That's really cool, how it plugs into the needle nose or the other head, and it grapples your figures, and it's almost like he can draw blood out of you from the air at distance instead of poking you with the needle. So that was a neat effect in itself. And as I said, I love this just the new articulation with the head. I can move all around with the vintage one was just like, that's all it could do. It was pretty boring. The big bug eyes is neat. I guess he's some type of robotic Mosquito type of humanoid, I want to call it, with muscles. Now, mine, as I said, is customized. I don't think I ever did a video on this. I've showed him in tours before. But what I wound up doing is, so I'm going to give him the 2000X vibe. This was a backpack from McFarlane, I want to say a Manga Spawn. And they actually had it was like a giant robotic insect that went on his back or something. And it actually had clear wings, which would have been cool for Mosquito, but it broke. So I wound up taking extra pieces and plugging the holes up with these. I think they came from like a Spider-Man figure or something, just give it more claws. But all these came with it. They're all articulated. They can spin around. I added this piece at the top. This came off a spray bottle because I had a peg up here, and I think I painted the inside of it red, and I think I glued it on. So it's like a blood vial. So as he draws blood in, that's not only his chest, that's kind of his reserve, right? Now, what I had to do with this, so it does come off. And I tried Velcro and it first didn't work, but I drilled and put a peg in here and had to put some tape. Now, unfortunately, I had to drill a hole in the back of my Mosquito and to be very careful. Not a deep hole, but just enough to push this piece on, and then the tape, because it was loose and swing around, would just kind of hold in position, and keep it tight. So it's kind of the backpack. But this is our Mosquito, obviously, without it. And going back to the blood-sucking action feature, right, now we know it's the push button, and it works just like the vintage, which was awesome for the time. Now, the only downfall was that with the Origins from the vintage is that the window's smaller now. The vintage was really big, like a bigger, it looked like a bat, obviously, going back to the Horde. But this is small. I don't know. They did that with the Battle Armor and He-Man, too. I don't know if it's something to do with the articulation now and the newer pegs where the arms got to snap in, or it's just trying to save tooling money. But at any rate, it still works pretty cool and works well, and we get all the improved articulation. Love it. Also, I love that with Mosquito 2, that you can bend the legs with these big space boots. The vintage one was very stubby looking. That used to drive me nuts as a kid. Just didn't. It almost seemed like as the newer figures were coming out, they got stubbier and stubbier. I didn't like it as I got a little bit older. By the time I got him, I was probably around 10. Now mine has dual plasma pistols, and one actually came off a vintage Mosquito, which I did have. And I don't know where he's at, but I remember having the laser pistol. I believe it's the shinier one is the vintage, and this is the Origins one. And they look almost like the same tooling. So just different materials. That's why one's shiny and one's more of a duller color. But yeah, really cool character. It was so needed at the time to get another additional Evil Horde. He might have been one of the last Evil Horde figures to come out, or it might have been Dragstore. I don't remember. So as far as childhood memories with Mosquito, or yes, I remember getting him from Child's World, bringing him home. Super excited to have a new member of Evil Horde, and just this whole look at the time, the blood action, you know, effect and all that stuff. My mom went and picked my grandmother up to stay over. She didn't drive. Brings her at the house, and it was funny. Even my grandma or my mom were really fascinated with these toys. I mean, so were we as kids, right? Because nobody ever made anything like this, and they were just so impressive looking. But anyway, so I'm showing her like, yeah, this is Master Universe Mosquito. Or not that she cared about that. She's like, oh, look at that guy. He's creepy and this, that, and the other thing. And I was like, yeah, he can suck blood out of things, because she was like, what's that on his nose? A needle? What does he do? So I said, yeah, he can take blood out of things. And I went over to my dog Bear, right, was the name at the time, and he's just laying there. And I went up to the dog, and so I had a head turned or something like that, and I pretend like because he was a Cocker Spaniel, so he had a lot like really furry. And I put the needle in him like this. I go, and all of a sudden I start pushing the button. I'm drinking the blood. I go, see, look, I can take blood out of Bear. She goes, oh my God, what are you doing? Stop, don't do that. How could they make something like that? She flips out. She's calling my mom, and she's like, well, yeah, she just creeped out over a toy can take blood out of things. I don't know if she was just fooling around or just old fashioned. Just thought they really made something like that on the market. But yeah, I remember she was a little upset about that. I was like, no, it's make believe, and you push the button, and yeah, it has a blood effect, and that creeped her out, and then she didn't like that all of a sudden. She was offended by it or something. Kids shouldn't play with that and that whole thing. My mom didn't care. That was my memory of Mosquito, or the good old days. But beside that, I always thought he was an awesome character, and I'm glad they came out with him really early in the Origins. I like how he was remastered, you want to call it that, side the little window, but it's there. And he's number 2 on my list. And finally, counting down to number 1 on my favorite Motu Origins list is Whiplash. I'm just so excited we finally got a Whiplash in line. I had a feeling one was coming once they, had Buzz off out, and then they had some of the tooling. Um, Whiplash was my favorite as a kid too for a couple reasons, but one was he was not only the first vintage figure I ever got, but he was also the first vintage figure I played with that my friends had. Now where I grew up, they had all the Master Universe collection first. I was just, the minute I see him, I fell in love with this stuff. Got to play with them, and by the time they had them, they were already up to the Castle Grayskull, all the first few figure lines out. But I remember getting to mess around with the Whiplash of all figures over at my best friend's house. At some point, finally, I just told my mom I love these things, and there's this Master Universe out, and we would go to Toys R Us, or not, excuse me, Child's World, and there they were in a rack. So he was the first figure I got to pick out, and then I think second was Zodak. I wound up getting, we went back a few days later, and then my collection went from there. I was always intrigued with his colors, the reptilian look. I'm just a big fan of going back to like Cobra Khan, the Mortal Kombat reptile character. He's sort of reminiscent to that a little bit, reminds me of. But I love favorite color green. I like that monster face, the tail or whipping action. He just seemed like just really a menacing character in the Motu franchise to me. And taking a closer look at Whiplash, so yeah, pretty basic figure. As I said, the creature head. Now he has the fangs in what we call it today, or somebody said in one of my comments they called it a nose tooth. I thought that was a good way of stating that. They just basically resculpted this figure the same way in Origins, which the vintage figure had, and where the classics redesign him quite a bit in the face, get rid of that, make him look more realistic. It's fun, I don't mind. It doesn't bother me. I always thought as a kid it was just a big mouthful of fangs, and I look at it closer, the mouth's not even open. So I'm surprised they went with that, but it's all about the nostalgia once again with this line. Yeah, I love this chest armor. Of course, Buzz-Off shared this. And the tail too. It's something with a reptilian character with a big tail. Now, unfortunately, that's kind of mixed for me. They did change the action features. No longer whips where it was hollow, and you would have that spring. Well, most of the vintage figures had the spring action effect in the waist where it would snap and return back, I think. And then of course the tail would snap. So now it's just manual, and they did that obviously because we know the action. You can break these at the waist for customization, and this tail does articulate, but it doesn't move. It's just a solid piece. As for the collectors, that's pretty cool. Instead of having this cheesy hollow flippy flop thing that they just did with Rattler again, which I don't like that too much with Rattler. I was hoping it would be more solid after seeing Whiplash. But if you did like that action feature, that nostalgia with this figure, yeah, Whiplash, this newer Whiplash doesn't work like that, so it's kind of fortunate. But I'm used to it. I like this new design better, and it looks better, feels more, just more solid. Yeah, of course, he came with this little spear thing, and I think Castle Grayskull set King Randall got it later. It was his only weapon. Love the articulation too. Once again, Whiplash, like all the Origins figures now, and just what an improvement. Just so cool. Besides that, like I said, my only childhood memories is really just getting him in hand for the first time, you know, and being my first ever Motu vintage figure. It was so exciting to finally be a part of that realm with all my friends and get this stuff in hands. And I had so much fun playing with him. This is when I play with my stuff, because later on I never played with my things. I played with my friends' stuff. I was more of a collector mentality. But I remember playing with him and Zodak. I also got, a couple more weeks later, I got, I think it was like Triclops and Merman, Battle Armor, He-Man, Skeletor, and the collection went from there. You couldn't get a hold of the regular He-Man, Skeletor, Faker, Man-at-Arms for about another year later, and they re-released them, because I was really upset at that when all my friends had them, or the card art, and I always wanted them. But yeah, I finally got them. Besides that, just another awesome character, you know, and I'm super excited we have him in the Origins, and he looks great. And he's number one on my list. Okay, and that was pretty much my top 10 Master of the Universe Origins favorites, and what I had on my list, and the reasons why. Yeah, I think I think they're great figures. I couldn't be happier to have these now, 40 years later, from the time, you know, myself or a lot of us discovered them as kids, and they're just a lot better, I think. But let me know in the comments what you guys think, or what is your top 10, or 5, or 20, you know? Be interesting to hear that. So, I appreciate you guys watching, and until next time, take care.